What's going on, everybody? My name's Dan. Welcome back to the Forge and Dirt YouTube channel. I'm excited to show you this here. This is the first podcast that we have with an interview. We got Mike Stien in there. We got little Mike Stien in there. So I'm excited to show you this. But before we get into that, I just kind of wanted to tell you, this is our first go with this. And it's our first go with a soundboard, having 4 mics plugged in at once and getting all those things done. I had some problems tuning their mics on the board. So there's going to be times where I may be quieter, Wayne may be quieter, and then it'll kind of move itself up. And so I know how to fix all of these things. All those things will be fixed for the next podcast, but just bear with me for this one, okay? So thanks so much. Enjoy the podcast. Make sure while you're here, you go ahead and like that video. Go ahead, hit that like button down there. And if you could, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. All it does is help me out. It's entirely free. And if you don't have an account, super easy to make one. So thanks so much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fastest podcast on the planet, the Forge and Dirt podcast. My name is Dan. Today I have my first podcast with the co-host Wayne Fisk. Wayne, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell people kind of where you're from and how we met.
I'm Wayne Fisk. I'm from Southwest Minnesota. Jackson Motorplex is a home track. Met Dan mainly down at Eagle Nationals this year and kind of clicked with GoPro and doing videos, and then he made a comment about wanting to do a podcast and thought about doing it myself, just don't have the equipment. So Dan had the equipment and I've got the people skills, and hopefully we'll get this going and rolling and turn into something pretty big.
Hell yeah, happy to have you on. And today we got the Stien boys, Mike and Mikey. Mike, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? We're going to start with you. Why don't you go ahead and talk about kind of where you're from, what brought you to the racetracks and things like that. I know you're from the Gaylord area, so why don't you just start there?
All right, I grew up, excuse me, in Arlington, Minnesota, and my dad loved racing through his father and his uncle, who were really, they followed it, they loved it, they went every Saturday. So he got into racing and started working at the racetrack. So I literally grew up at the Arlington Raceway. We would go there and do track work, pick up garbage, whatever, just hanging out while my dad and Bob were doing whatever. And I fell in love with it. I don't know if I had a choice to not fall in love with it. I was raised into it.
Right. And was sprint cars kind of always the love when it came to racing, or was it just kind of something you fell into with your old man?
It was, I think, the love we have together for sprint cars, because I appreciated everything growing up. It didn't matter. I liked it all.
So when you get started racing, Mike, the first year that you're in a sprint car, about what year is that? Do you remember?
It was 2010 was my first year.
Okay, 2010. And then did you start off at Arlington?
Yep.
Okay.
We raced Arlington, Redwood, and I think that was it for our first year. Maybe Jackson once, but...
Okay. And in the following years, you started to branch out to other tracks too? The
second year we raced, we traveled a lot. I think we ran over 40 shows, and we ran some UMSS, IMCA, whatever we could. We were still 360s then, so we traveled a lot our second year, and I think that helps gain a lot of experience.
So was there like when you first started off, was there like a dream track for you that you wanted to go to just starting off? Or like even now, is there like a dream track that you'd love to race at?
I guess when I started, it was, I always wanted to race at Arlington. I grew up at the track. Redwood was a favorite track of mine when we raced there weekly. I was always a fan of that. Big Jackson was really cool. I liked that.
When you were running Redwood, were the Allens the owners at that time?
I'm not sure about
promoters,
owners, but definitely promoters,
yeah,
yes.
Sorry, my bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
So kind of with the Jackson going from a half mile down to the 3/8, as a driver, how did you anticipate like going into like the shorter track versus the long track?
I think that was a very exciting time for everybody. Big things were happening at Jackson, and the Queering was investing into it, and I think it didn't matter what was going to happen. It was just exciting.
And that was a definite, in Southwest Minnesota, definite like change in sprint car racing, kind of bringing sprint car racing back in the area, because it was in a low point in the area not doing so hot, and then Queering took over Jackson and raced the half mile a couple times, and then a couple of seasons, and then shortened it up. And I, as a fan and now like working on cars, I definitely see rooms for improvement at the track, but definitely more exciting on a short track than a long track.
I think so, definitely.
So when you get started then in 2010, how did the first couple of years of racing go for you? Were they successful? Did you have some ups and downs? Kind of what did that all look like for you?
We were consistently getting better, mainly. I wasn't very fast when I started. It took, I think, like a year and a half before I won my first race. So it was a lot about seat time, learning, and I had some people help me with that, some good sponsors and some great people behind me that kind of made me the driver that I am today.
Yeah, one of those being Mr. Sargent. I know today that you had gone to a visitation for him and that he had a major impact in your sprint car career. Is there anything you want to say about him and the impact that he had on everything you're doing now in sprint car racing?
He basically made me, I think. He was a huge inspiration to what I am, to how I hold myself, the standards I hold myself to, the respect I try and give to other drivers and people around me, and even how I race people. Just a great guy, and I give thanks for the time that he invested in me and the time he took away from his family, which are great, awesome people. It's just to be a part of the sport that he loves.
That's awesome. Yeah, and right now, in terms of my career, you are, to me, what he was to you. And so it's kind of cool right now to see kind of like that passing of the torch going on, if you will. Especially with what's coming up tomorrow, getting the car and everything. It's going to be a really fun next few months. So I thank him for the impact that he had on you, as now it's something that's falling onto me. Now back to the racing part. During that portion of time, you're running 360s, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
About what time did you get into a 305?
I don't remember the exact year. But when Arlington switched over from 360s to the Ravesaver deal.
And did you enjoy that switch? Did you think that'd be a good switch? How did that go amongst the community?
It was mixed feelings, disappointing, because you're losing the horsepower and what 360 racing was, for your hopes and dreams. But financially, it was the smartest decision, and there was big hopes that it was going to take off too, but it took quite a while in our area for it to really start going, and I think it's going now.
How were the car counts in the beginning? I mean, were they?
I remember race even towards the end of the 360s though. There was bad nights when we would have 4, 5, 8 cars, and going to what it is now, having in the last 2 years of Racesavers in central Minnesota, having possibly 7, 8 new rookies in 2 years in the last, that's exciting.
That's crazy.
It's
for
great.
A track like Arlington to showcase rookies. I mean, we had Hannah Graff, Zach Faish, Matt Johnson. Were there any? Those were main 4 that raced pretty frequently that did fairly well. I mean, Zach and Matt and Hannah all picked up their first wins.
Yep.
Feature wins their first year.
Yeah.
Rookies at Arlington. That's pretty impressive. Racing against Mike Stien, Trevor Service, Billy Johnson. You got old timers there like Neil Stevens. I mean, that's
Chris Graff.
There's
Kurt Lund.
Yeah, there's nothing to take away from the driver talent at Arlington Raceway.
Right.
It is not one person just goes out there and waxes everybody. I mean, it is a diet, fight hard to the front, and once you're up there, you're not guaranteed to walk away with it. I mean,
right. Absolutely.
And racing with the rookies, I mean, it kind of throws in the aspect of, they're learning, sometimes have spin outs, that kind of stuff. And as a driver who has the experience when you're having a rookie like that, how does that kind of does it make it more fun, or is it more nerve-wracking having the rookies out there or trying to build the sport up?
It's both. You know, it's exciting to see the sport grow, which we all want to see. We all love seeing that. It's a family sport, but it can be nerve-wracking at times. You have to pay more attention, but you should be doing that anyways. But you know, and then accidents just happen. Everybody, I've spun out this year, and a rookie spun out. You know, no difference.
Right.
Mistakes happen.
Right. That's the whole thing of it. I mean, we've seen Bill Johnson this year hardly ever run the. I mean, he runs the bottom side, but stays away from tractor tires, and he caught a tractor tire.
Exactly.
Ruined a night. Not ruined a night, but I mean, took him out of the lead, and it kind of benefited you that night, if I don't recall.
So as a rookie then, now to bring little Mikey into this, and Mikey, you'll be a rookie with me next year. I'm very excited to get on the track with you. How do you feel about being able to race against your old man and get on the track with some of these guys that are out there at Arlington?
It's absolutely going to be a lot of fun. I, for one, cannot wait to just even hop in there and just do some, just like really anything with the car. Ever since my dad started racing sprint cars, it's just kind of been my dream to go with it too. And so to race against him, that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to learn a lot of stuff out there and hopefully beat him a couple times.
Yeah, right. And then we'll get our doors blown off by him a couple times. Because I can guarantee that'll come.
Oh yeah.
But
there's going to be the one night where there's a giant cushion. And he ain't going to miss it.
Right. Yeah. No kidding.
I was gonna say, Mike likes her on the top side.
That I do.
So, Mike, when you came out of the 360s and into the 305s, how did the success go for you right off the bat with that? Was that something you were comfortable with? I mean, less power for you was probably something that was kind of made it, I don't want to diss 305s at all, but made it a little bit easier for you, if you will. Just pin it to the floor and really learn how to maneuver those cars and set them up, if I'm correct.
I think they're harder to drive. My first season in a 305, we came out with some decent expectations and had a mishap, and on the first corner, on the first lap of the heat race, in a brand new to us car, we yard sailed it. So I get to start up front then in week 2 with a low points average. So we came out and we won quite a bit in the 305s. So the transition to me went well because of our success and the luck that we had. So I didn't mind it, but it was definitely, you miss the horsepower, that feeling of when you step on the gas in a 305, it's like, okay, well, we'll get there eventually.
Where's the rest of the power?
Yep. When you step on the gas in a 360 and you can just light them up, that's special.
So it's kind of an interesting aspect, but as you starting sprint car racing, starting in a 360 versus Dan and Mikey here starting in a 305, what would be something that would you rather start in the 360 and come down to the 305, or the 305 going up to the 360 be more beneficial as a new driver?
I think 305 going up cost-wise is an obvious reason, but you're not lacking really any talent in the 305s. I mean, there's people everywhere you go that are shoes, just wheelmen, that are kicking butt in 305s. So I don't think you're gonna lose anything on the experience of it. Just maybe save a little bit of money while you're learning before you move up. I guess is my opinion on that.
I think it's a fantastic jumpstart class, if you will, for guys to get into sprint cars.
Exactly.
I mean, it even states in the rule book of the IMCA Racesavers that this is supposed to be a funds specific class, and that you can run a competitive car for $7,000, or a competitive motor, for that $7,000, and that's the best part of what this class brings. And I see that maybe having an effect on how many 360 drivers we see in the future, especially with tracks like Husitz running 305s and 410s. There's no 360 class. I think that's interesting to see, and Jackson will probably have some of that this year. Obviously there's 360 specific series and stuff, but you see the 305 class expanding out possibly to get as large as a 360 or a 410?
Or possibly having an MSTS series that's dedicated to more of the 305 and not the IMCA Racesaver traveling series, but more of a more state or more national
right, absolutely,
traveling series.
That would be interesting. I think the class would have to grow more in numbers, I think, and in popularity a little bit before that would happen.
And like you said, it's tough too because like Knoxville has the Pro Series, which is different than Ravesaver, and then out in Pennsylvania, the Posse territory, they have 358s.
Right. Yeah.
So it's, I mean, the beginner classes at some of your big areas are completely different. They're not all the same class, so that kind of hurts the national.
Something that drives this question is the car count that we saw at Eagle. I think that Eagle being the size that it is, and seeing the people come from as far and as wide as they did, should tell you a lot about kind of where that series is at. You know, you'll see guys that'll pull down to Ohio for those 410 races at tracks like Eldora. I think Eagle and the Eagle Nationals is something that is honestly the coolest thing in the world to me in 305s. You know, the way they have it set up, the car counts, everything. You know, your first season or your first year at Eagle, how did that go for you running with those big hitters?
We've never had luck at Eagle, seriously. But I think our first year actually went pretty well. I think we made like a C and a B feature and an LCQ on the final night and just didn't get it done. So, but it was intimidating just, you know, to go to from a smaller budget team that doesn't travel a lot to go to a bigger place like that for us and experience that. It was amazing. It was intimidating. It was exciting. It was everything you want in racing. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah,
And there's nothing to take away from like having a B or a LCQ finish at Eagle, the largest show in the nation,
right,
for 305. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what did they have? E's and F this year.
Yep.
I think they had an F this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
So Eagle being what it is, and the car counts growing at Arlington and places like that, as you, somebody who's been in the 305 series for as long as you have, how has and how quickly has that expanded over the last 5 to 6 years?
In our area, it was a slow transition, and I think it's just starting to gain traction right now. So it took a while.
Yeah,
but I think we're there now.
In the last couple of years, there's been an explosion.
Yes.
I mean, this year having, what was it that night? We had 22 cars out there?
Yeah, I think the last night at Arlington we had 22.
That's
I don't remember for the last night, but I know that there was the IMCA series, whatever, and we got 21 that night, so that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a big car count for Arlington.
Yep.
I think that's bigger. I mean, Jackson didn't have many races this year, but that was almost more cars than what Jackson had when they had the 305 shows that they did this year.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is nothing to take away from Jackson or Todd with the shows that they did run this year. Weather did not play very nice with Jackson Motorplex this year. How does going into a week, like preparing for the race, and that's like your Friday night, Saturday night deal, going racing, and then there's rain in the forecast. Like, how depressing as a driver does that get? Like, getting the rain outs, or maybe it's just a break. Like, we can have a relaxing Saturday night.
It's a little bit of both, but it is at first. It's like depressing, and you're like, well, that just ruins my whole weekend. And then, a little bit into the weekend, you're like, oh, this is all the stuff that I've been missing that that I can't do when we're racing, hanging out with family and just relaxing. And by the end of the weekend, you're like very grateful that it was a rain out.
I've found myself emotionally distraught.
Yeah.
On Saturdays when there's the rain out.
And then kind of like the whole, like, you've spent all week getting the car ready, and then there's a rain out. As far as like maintenance and going through the car, does that second week kind of allow you to focus on that more in-depth detail of the maintenance and checking everything over?
Yeah, you better show up ready then.
Right. You don't want to come after a rain out and, oh man, we should have checked that out.
Yep.
So Mike, as we've got your son Mikey, rookie this year, and Dan himself is going to be a rookie, if If you could give them 3 things going into their rookie year, what would be the advice that you'd give to them?
Holding your line is a big thing. Learning how to hold your line. And you can switch lines, you just got to know when to do it. That's a huge respect factor. That'll probably be my main goal. And then keeping your mental focus, that's huge. Where you keep your mindset at, I think, is a big deal to racing. So out of 3, those are my 2 big that I'm going to focus on.
Yep.
Those are a big 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know mindset is something that I'm even focusing on now,
Definitely.
doing mental training, and yeah, it's a whole thing, man. Something I learned this year is that racing in general is by far the most frustrating, humbling, and yet exciting and amazing thing in the world. Like it's just...
Speaking of humbling and stuff like that, look at tonight's World Finals.
Right.
Logan Schuhart's dominated the last two nights to start a race.
Yeah.
And has bad luck, a bleeder issue last night,
Yep.
and then tapping the wall and losing a tire tonight. Like,
yeah. God, I can only imagine what that guy felt in that car.
If you lose your cool in that situation, it's hard to come back from. You need to stay focused and stay on point.
Right, like last night he could have. Right.
He came back.
He came back and had a dominating car again tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just wasn't meant to be.
Just to use the time that you're given right now, if you had to give a pitch to a sponsor as to why they should be a part of your race team, Mike, what was the pitch that you'd give them right now?
I don't know. You're putting me on the spot. I think for me, I'm not really a people person. I think I'm an introvert. I feel you'd have to just come and see the atmosphere in the pits and see how the respect that's given and taken from the people and the atmosphere, and then the performance too, you know. Come and see it, experience it, see what it's all about.
Absolutely. That's
so
awesome.
To maybe kind of finish this off here, Mike, what are some season goals you got going into 2022 here?
I would like to travel a little more. There's some talk about maybe going to Eagle early, getting some more experience at Eagle. Maybe early on a couple times, traveling possibly to Cedar Lake. I've never raced there. I've been there for races to watch. But, you know, that's something we even talked about this past year. We wanted to do that and just never got out there. So I would like to maybe travel a little bit more and experience some more things while also really focusing on what I'm laying down for a base level for like Dan and Mikey that I'm going to be helping also.
So with that, could we see a Mike Stien appearance at Huset's in the bull ring?
Yeah, definitely.
Stien, by the way. Stien.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get that right someday.
I
Stien.
will get that right.
It'll happen someday.
Hole through my lip the last 3 times.
But and that was
I can't believe I did that.
When Huset's went away. You know, Huset's is a special place. When Huset's went away, we were going to run weekly at Huset's that year, and then it went away. So I'm thankful that it came back. We just haven't made it back yet. I've only been at Huset's once in my life. And yes, I want to go to Huset's. It's not a place I want to stay away from for any particular reason besides the distance on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
I'm excited to race against you, Mike. I'm excited to race against you, Mikey. I appreciate you guys coming on. It was awesome to have you guys on for the first interview here with the Forge Endure podcast. Wayne, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been awesome to get to know you here as well. Just one big sprint car family, man. So I appreciate everybody. This is the Forge Endure podcast, the fastest podcast on the planet. I appreciate you guys listening. Have a good night.